twist, and then the plot twist was twisted, and then the twisted plot twist was twisted, and then the twisted plot twist that was twisted, that got twisted, and then me, I was twisted. Hello and welcome to Kelsey's Readsies. My name is Kelsey, and today's Readsies are the books I read in February and March. I don't have a book pun for March. Book March instead of like a bookmark. Cut the cameras. So we're gonna talk about the books that I read in the last 2 months. I have about 11 books to talk about here. I've been rereading the series of Unfortunate Events. It has been healing my inner child and also explaining why I have such a dark sense of humor. The fact that they just gloss over their parents dying in a fire. At an early age, I was like, oh, hell, that's comedy. I read the first like 5 books in January, and then I read another 3 in February. And if you don't know, basically these orphans, their parents die in a terrible fire and they get put with their like closest family member, which is a man named Count Olaf, played by Jim Carrey in a heinous early 2000s adaptation. Unforgivable crime against humanity. So they go and stay with this relative, and he basically is just like an evil villain who's trying to steal their money and murder them. He continues to maintain that he only needs one of the orphans alive to get the fortune. He is an actor, but not a good one, and he puts himself in these like crazy disguises that the orphans can always see through, but no one else can ever seem to find out, even though they're like straight silly. They're kids books, you know, they're very over the top, like they're camp. Pretty much everything that I can say about Series of Unfortunate Events I said in my last video, what I read in January, because that was the first couple of books. If I talk about these ones, then I'm going to spoil it. I don't want to spoil it for you if you haven't read it, because even though it's a kid's book, it still hits. It honestly hits even more now in my adult life. The 3 that I read this month, which was the Austere Academy, the Ersatz Elevator. Is that how you say that? I don't know.
Ersatz.
What did I say? Ersatz? Okay, the
Ersatz.
Elevator, and the Vile Village, which I just want to say about the Vile Village. I have always had a severe fear of birds and being burnt at the stake. And this book, I'm realizing now, read in my early childhood, is the reason that I have these fears. It's not an immediate threat that I'm gonna be burnt at the stake. Like, this isn't Witchland City. Okay. So that's everything I want to say about Series of Unfortunate Events. The next book that I read is a new all-time favorite, and I'm actually looking at the Goodreads right now. I gave it a 5-star, and I'm actually shocked, disgusted, dismayed, and personally attacked that this has a 3.2 rating on Goodreads. Do you guys not like to giggle and laughy laugh? So the book that I'm talking about is called Really Good Actually by Monica Heisey, and it was laugh out loud funny. I was listening to the audiobook while I would walk my dog, pictured melted off camera. I would literally be walking the streets around in my neighborhood, just cackling out loud, like looking genuinely insane, but like not caring. I love like a stream of consciousness kind of vibe. Takes a topic and just explores that to every single degree. And this one, I don't know why I wanted to read about this, but it was about divorce, and specifically getting divorced when you're really young. So my first update is, oh, this is the kind of dark, honest humor that I will eat up, bitch, yum, yum, yum. So that's how you know I'm enjoying a book. If I say yum, yum, yum within the first 2%. So basically we're just following this girl after she gets divorced, out here trying to make it on her own. She's like going through some shit in her life, behaving very erratically. At one point she's just wasted at a wedding and is like live tweeting the wedding, talking shit about it. And then the next day her friend is calling her out and she's like, you tweeted about this wedding talking shit 37 times. And I was like, yeah, haven't we all tweeted 37 times in a row talking shit about something? That's just me watching the VMAs. At another point in the book, she's like so depressed that she just starts writing Harry Styles fanfic. I thought it was hilarious. So many different pop culture references that just really resonated with me specifically. At one point she calls her ex and it's like 2 in the morning on Valentine's Day. And she leaves him a voicemail just singing No One Is Alone from Into the Woods. People make mistakes. Fathers, mothers. No one is alone. Truly, really. So funny. Oh my god. Who's gonna look away from a dumpster fire if it shines so bright. The next book is What Lies in the Woods, and holy shit, I could not put it down, except I'm gonna put it down right now and just put the little picture up. I've been reading a lot of thrillers lately. They've just been really predictable, or if they're not predictable, they're like too shocking. I'm not thinking about any book in particular, but I didn't say it. This book is about these three best friends, these three girls who grew up together, and when they were kids, they were playing in the woods. As a kid, you can play in the woods and it's totally cool, but if I wanted to play in the woods and my 29-year-old human body, like that's just trespassing. These girls were in the woods playing. They were like, I want to say 12 years old. One of the friends gets like really viciously attacked, stabbed a bunch. Their two friends see it and they point out the killer. He gets arrested, he goes to jail, and then it's like 20 years later and it comes out that the man that they sent to jail all those years ago died in jail. R.I.P. It's from the perspective of the girl who was attacked, and she is just really questioning her memory about it. And you're wondering, like, was it actually that guy? Was it someone else? There were so many parts of this book where the character, to try to like remember what happened, kept going back to the woods. And every time she was there, I was like, girl, get out of those woods. It's very twisty turny, and it had a lot of different other plots going on that I can't really say without spoiling. There's a huge reveal about one of the characters, and if you've read it, you know what I'm talking about. But like, I did not see that coming. I was shocked. I was gagged. I was humbled by this book because I did not guess anything that happened at the end. There were a couple of moments here and there that were like a little too convenient. You know, she was like, I need to find out this. And then it would be like a couple pages later, she'd be like, I found it out. I was like, okay. I was entertained. And then when it came time to like review it, I was like, that was a little bit convenient. That was a little bit convenient, I will say. I will say that was a bit convenient. But it got us to like a crazy ending, crazy plot twist. It had like a plot twist, and then the plot twist was twisted, and then the twisted plot twist was twisted, and then the twisted plot twist that was twisted, that got twisted, and then me, I was twisted. The next book that I listened to on audiobook for my library, but I need a copy of it because I want to highlight it all over, up and down, side to side. Happy Hour by Marlo Granados. Amazing. Okay, so if you watched Don't Trust the Bee in Apartment 23, the main character, Chloe, would love this book. About two girlies who are making it by in New York City. They are doing what they gotta do. They're scamming, they're scheming, they're doing random little jobs. It was really like light read. I don't usually say this, or no one really says it as a compliment, but it was slow in a good way. It was slow in like a stop and smell the flowers kind of way, relishing in the little details, and it just romanticized everything. This was kind of like a masterclass in how to romanticize life. I felt happy reading this. It made my day brighter, and it made me see the world through the lens of like curiosity. I just felt different after I read this. Like, I read it and I was like, yeah, life is like beautiful. Beauty is all around us, I think. Nuance, it was effortless, it was natural, it flowed. But basically, we're just like reading this girl's diary for a summer in New York. So she mentions like getting older, and she says, when we were younger, everything for the first time always felt the best, or at least the most. Getting older feels like striking the same chord and it's sounding different. She's talking about keeping a diary and like writing everything down. And she says, to write is a task that feels like it is forcibly propelling you forward. I want to inscribe myself somewhere, anywhere besides into someone else's life. This was an absolute 5-star for me, a favorite of the year, possibly all time. This might be my new favorite girl boss book. I'm so sorry. I love you. Read this if you're looking for someone luxurious, if you're feeling girly and you're feeling silly. The joy that this brought me and like the peace that it gave me reminded me to like slow down and enjoy life. I loved it. So those are all the books I read in February, and now we're getting into March. Next one that I read was a very random pick. I had never even like heard of this book before, but the description, I was like, what are you actually saying? I feel like I need to just kind of tell you what the description says. So it's Pure Color by Sheila Heti. Pure Color is a galaxy of novels, explosive, bright, and streaked with beauty. It's a contemporary Bible, an atlas of feeling, and an absurdly funny guide to the great and terrible things about being alive. And I was like, go on. And it says, here we are, just living in the first draft of creation, which was made by some great artist who is now getting ready to tear it apart. it's very like trippy. It does not start like this is a character and this is the story. There's like things happening over here and there's things going on over here and you're like, whoa, hey, oh, okay. Like I read this sober as can be and I felt like I just took mushrooms and put on Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. I just felt like I was at a music festival in like the middle of a field. I kind of feel like this book felt like a podcast. Like it had a lot of rogue commentary, non-linear storytelling. It was exploring a lot of different topics, but not in like a beginning, middle, end kind of way. Kind of just like a, what about this? And I was also thinking about this. I did give it a 3 stars because I didn't think the collection equated to a book, but I still was grateful for what I read. Like I learned a lot about grief and existence. Honestly, if you're like looking to ponder on life, I would say this is a good one. We do get a little bit of character that we're following, but it comes back and forth through philosophy and following her. Her father has just passed and she's like going through that, and at one point she becomes a tree, or more specifically becomes a leaf, and her father is also a leaf on the tree, and they're just vibing, just like hanging out on this tree, just like being leaves, and he's just like telling her basically like how he feels about the world, how the world works. She becomes a leaf and she's just a leaf for a while, and then she's not a leaf and she's like going to work and whatever, and then at the end it kind of implies that the leaf was a metaphor. So I'm like, was the leaf a metaphor? I don't think I'll ever know. If you're expecting like a beginning, middle, end story, you're not getting it on this one. But if you want to like ponder life and like look at the world in like a new way, maybe take mushrooms and then read it, because it feels like you took mushrooms anyway, so you might as well. It was interesting. Definitely the most interesting book that I've read. Made me confused the most. Also like, huh. That was my thought the whole time reading this. I was like, oh, I never thought about it that way. I'll never think about it that way again. I feel like if you read it, you'll understand why I'm like, it was interesting. It was interesting. All right, the next one, I'm sorry to say, but it's the first DNF of the year. I got up to 30% on this one. I was like, oh, this is not getting better. Nay, it's getting worse. So this one was Belladonna. I really like the premise because it was about a girl who can see death, has the powers of death as well. So I was like, that's pretty fucking metal. And of course, in my mind, I'm like, fall in love with death. And then they introduce him and he's like kind of sexy. She finds out at the very beginning she can see death and death is around. She can't die. He can kill other people in her place. And she's like very upset about this. Not because she's like afraid of killing people, but she says, now no one will want to marry me. And death is like, that's what you're worried about? And I was like, that's what you're worried about? Very weird. And I was like, okay, whatever. I kind of glossed over that. Keeps going on with the story. And it just keeps talking about a lady should be calm and demure. A lady should be this. A lady should be that. And I'm just like, okay, maybe we're challenging those. We weren't. We weren't challenging those ideas. We were saying them and we were meaning them, and that was the goal. I don't know, man. I was just like, ugh, this is just like so not for me. Listening to the audiobook, wearing my Crocs and hitting my vape pen, I was like, I am not a lady that is soft and demure. Next. Oh, that wasn't very ladylike. Shut the fuck up. So the next book that I read, which is my first V.E. Schwab, it was Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. And I've heard so many mixed reviews about it. Like a you hate it or you love it kind of book. And me, I loved it. I was obsessed with it. I thought it was great. This girl basically makes a deal with the devil. She'll live forever. However, people will always forget her. She can be talking to them. If they go into another room, they'll forget her, which is awkward when you're like chilling with someone at their house and they walk away to go refill your drinks and then come back in and they're like, who are you? But mainly she's with men and they're like, huh, awesome, there's a babe in my house. Yeah, it is kind of slow at the beginning, but there are 300 years of her living and being forgotten. So it's showing differences between when she first got the curse or whatever placed on her and she's in 1800s France and like scrounging by, sneak back past people's villages, like steal from them because she can't have a lease or a house or anything like that. She's constantly forgotten. At one point she pays for a hotel and then the keeper comes in, starts yelling at her and like tells her to get out. And she's like, I paid. And they're like, I've never seen you before, get out of my hotel. She's like, fuck. This just keeps happening to her like over and over. Yeah, it's kind of slow, but like they have to give different examples of how it was the beginning and then how it is 300 years later when she's in New York City. It was a little redundant, it was, but I kind of enjoyed it. I was like, always hoping that like someone would remember her, and you kind of know that at some point in the book someone does remember her because that's on the back of the book. Like something that I really enjoyed was that she was constantly stealing from department stores, and I feel like I would use my immortal forgettability also to steal from department stores. That was iconic. I enjoyed the life of crime that she had to live. I thought that was fun. But once you find the person that does remember her, his story and her story, I just want to say, if you think about not finishing this book because you're like, when is this going to get better? It gets better when you meet the person that remembers her. Just trust the process. If you DNF'd it before and you're thinking like, maybe I should know what happened, I think you should go back and read it. Oh, such a hit. Such a hit for me. I loved it. I had a great time. I enjoyed myself. So the next book that I read was a sequel, and I don't know why I haven't read it sooner because I loved the first one. I didn't even know the sequel came out. I feel like no one's been talking about it. I read The Atlas Paradox. It's so shiny. You could start a fire if you needed it to. Oh my god, this is too shiny. I'm putting this down. I read that book. Y'all saw it? Atlas Paradox here. Whatever. If you read The Atlas 6 and you were like, yeah, this is a good story. I'm enjoying this, but this is so overly fluffy, overly written, overly pretentious. That does get better in this one. I really can't talk about this one that much without spoiling it, but I will say that one of the characters time travels and gets stuck in 1989. However, that character is without a doubt in their Reputation era. No doubt in my mind. Love this book so much. Definitely will read the next one. I will say the audiobook for both the Atlas 6 and Atlas Paradox is so good because there's like a whole cast of characters and they give it their all. They put their whole Atlasy into it. I loved it so much, and I will definitely enjoy the last one. I am an Atlas 6 defender through and through, and I won't be changed. Specifically, Parisia, I will go to the ends of the earth for you. I'm looking through my Goodreads update. At one point, I just say, ah. Like, this is just a wild ride. Like, honestly, so much happens in this, and you're just like, whoa, hey, ho, ho, ho. Oh my god. And it flashes between each character's perspective. It just stays lit. This book stays lit from the beginning, middle, end. I read it very quickly, and it's a long boy. Oh my god, how long is this bitch? Yeah, this bitch is 400 pages. I read it in like a day and a half because I was like, oh, this is lit. Great book, great series, love it. Were you a theater kid? Are you mentally ill? Do you support the phrase, be gay, do crime? Do I have the book for you? We Were Villains. Please read this, especially if you fit the criteria I just described. I would not recommend this to every single person because it's a lot, but the people I would recommend it to, mentally ill, thespians, please read this. You will love it. It follows our main character, Oliver, who went to a college with a like booming theater program that specialized in Shakespeare, went to the school with his friends, and it basically starts like 10 years after he would have left the school, and he's getting out of jail for murder. I love when a story like jumps in after the action's already happened and you're looking at a character and it's like record scratch. You're probably wondering how I got here. Well, let me start from the beginning. Basically, he just got out of jail and the cop that was like on his case is like, hey man, I know you didn't do this shit. Who really murdered the person that got murdered back in the day? And what really happened? Tell me the whole deal. Oliver is like, I'll tell you everything. He weaves this tale. It is poetry. If you like Shakespeare, you'll like this because it's written a lot like in verse. Really, really flowery. I kind of like hesitate to call it flowery. There needs to be like something better than that. Like this was not just like flowery writing, like this was a fucking bouquet. Like this was beautiful. If you read the first couple chapters and you're like, oh, I'm digging this writing, it's only gonna get better. If you are reading it and you're like, I really like this, but I'm kind of missing the intention behind the words, not really understanding the message, listen to the audiobook because the narrator for the audiobook, he understands Shakespeare as much as the author does, and like he gets all of those nuances in the speeches, so you really understand, even though it's in like old-timey language, what they're trying to say. I am a Shakespeare girly always through and through. I played Helena in an 8th grade production of Midsummer Night's Dream, and I'm so sorry to the family, friends, and faculty that had to sit through that because a middle school production of A Midsummer Night's Dream, truly heinous. I just remember our 13-year-old Lysander on stage. Love looks not with the eyes, but with the mind. Therefore, Cupid's bow is painted blind. A lot of the scenes take place while they're like actively doing a play. So it'll be like the actors performing their lines, thoughts of the character, like while that's happening. Very immersive. It felt like you were involved in the theater. I love this book so much because I identify as like the drama teacher from High School Musical.
The theater is a temple of art, a precious cornucopia of creative energy.
I am Miss Darbus coded. I love the drama and the flair of it all. And if you feel that, then I think that you'll love this too. Like I said, I would not recommend this to everyone. It is very pretentious and like over the top. There's a great story here. The murder mystery, whatever reveal, like is insane. And like the pacing that it takes to get there is so natural and just like a story that's told so beautifully. Such a good book and totally worth the hype. This was the best book that I've read this year, definitely. And a new all-time favorite for sure. Those are all the books that I read in the last 2 months. I am in the middle of one book. I have like 70 pages left. I was in the middle of reading this, and then I started reading If We Were Villains and just got sucked in. I just meant to start If We Were Villains and just like see if I liked the vibe. And then I ended up reading the whole fucking thing. No complaints about the book I'm about to mention. I just like got distracted. The cool ass prince. The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. It's my first book about the Fae. I love that they can't lie. Like that just adds such an interesting element to like a villain of a book. Like normally a villain is just like, they're gonna lie. Like they're a villain, they're gonna lie. Definitely really enjoying that. I'll talk about that later once I finish it, but this has been a long enough video and it is 4:30 in the morning. But yeah, some amazing books that I've read. Definitely my top 3, I would say. Number 3 would be Happy Hour. Number 2 would be Really Good Actually. And then number 1 would be If We Were Villains. But as of right now, If We Were Villains, whew, on the forefront of my noggin and will not be leaving anytime soon. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. Love you. Bye.